Can you just come towards me just a little bit?
Oh, please. I've been goosed ever since I've been... don't touch my arse. Good evening and welcome to Have I Got News for You. I'm Brian Blessed. Now, in the news this week, the polls continue to slide for Gordon Brown, and some people are saying he's dead and buried. But I think the opposite. I say, Gordon's alive! My darlings! Also in the news, with his second birthday coming up, Hammy the hamster dropped several hints that he wants a wheel. And disaster strikes at an open-air pool in Dorset as the attendant starts hoovering the leaves before the last swimmer is out.
Right, calm down.
Quick, the fucking
taser! Get a taser!
The fucking thing was too slow. I'm fucking...
Get a taser!
The fucking thing was... Here we go. And disaster strikes at an open-air pool in Dorset as the attendant starts hoovering the leaves before the last swimmer is out. On Ian Hislop's team tonight is a Conservative MP who once allowed his Westminster house to be used by John Major. Luckily, Norma never found out. Please welcome Alan Duncan, MP. And with Paul Merton tonight is a comedian whose best friend once told him, if they're not laughing, it's not comedy. Well, either that, or you're just not speaking loudly enough! Welcome, Marcus Brigstocke! Now, in round one, we cover the biggest stories of the week. Ian and Alan, take a look at this.
That's Flash Gordon. There he is.
Oh, Lord Cashpoint. Yeah, asking for more. Oh, it's the back rubber.
That's one way of putting it. And there's a balloon debate.
And they're having a smoochy one.
I mean, this is Gordon Brown's worst week in politics since last week. So this week, Brown has been...
It's good.
Hello,
It's good.
Paul.
Carry on. It's
I'm
wonderful.
I'm big fan.
Rave reviews. Rave reviews.
Shut your face. It says that extracts from Lord Levy's book were printed in the Sunday papers.
Oh.
Blair apparently said Brown couldn't beat Cameron. Alan, any views on that?
Well, you know, I was the marvellous Prime Minister, you know, just... you know...
Who's that? What were some of the other revelations in the book? I'm going to chin you if you don't watch it.
He said that Blair had a lot of massage from Carol Kaplan, and he had to say, this is getting embarrassing. And apparently Tony was very red-faced about it.
He also revealed that Brown thought Mandelson had been spreading rumours that Brown was gay. I mean, that's not the Mandelson we all know, is it, Alan? Can I comment on that?
I think I might give that one a miss.
Oh, right, I'll press it.
No, Brian, you don't then let him give it a miss. What you do is you refer to him again and say...
I refer to you, Ian, I refer to you.
And then you say, but surely it's quite interesting if Peter Mandelson is spreading rumours that Gordon Brown is gay. Is that not of interest?
So, you're supposed to be on my side.
I don't know what gave you that impression.
let them be nasty to each other. But in the Conservative Party, we all love each other.
Right.
I mean, not like that, but you know what I mean.
Well, a bit like that. I mean, it's a new Liberal Tory party,
Yeah.
isn't it?
No, just me.
I suppose you are the only gay Tory, aren't you?
Actually, there are
Are you gay?
Brian, you'd never guess you were an actor.
So this week, Brown has been putting on a brave face. But what might have wiped the smile off his face?
It might be Mayor Bojo, even as we speak.
Bojo?
When you've got initials like that, you can't use them on their own.
Right, and during the campaign, who did Boris claim was the first member of his team?
Oh, Kate Howie. Hooey.
Hoey.
Hoey. Is it?
Hooey. She's
That's-
Labour.
That's not another street name for her, is it?
Coho.
Yeah, no, she's... She is on the Olympic Committee, but I think that's a bit unfair.
Now, what did Brian Paddock say about Kate Hoey? Now, let's have a look.
Kate Hoey is my local MP. I worked with her very closely when I was in the police. And to be honest with you, she's bonkers.
And how else did Boris attempt to impress voters this week? Well, let's have a look.
OK.
Sorry.
Boris was a prefect at Eton, though, wasn't he?
Yes.
That's why he was no good at the basketball thing, because he's only ever played that game with a third former's head.
Yeah. It's just a disaster, isn't it? He's going to go off and do something surprising and extraordinary, and people are going to go, oh, no, he's a fucking idiot.
The Daily Mail helpfully provided a London election Q&A section on Wednesday. Now, the questions they addressed were, how does the London election work? What happens if I vote for the same candidate twice? What should I do if I want to get rid of Ken? If he's to stand any chance of turning things around to win the next election, Gordon Brown has a huge mountain to climb. Ooh, lucky bastard. Now, this week... I get terrible wind. This week has seen some crucial local elections. At one point, the London election was too close to call. But if it goes to a recount, my money's on Zanu PF. Boris Johnson was photographed on a special Back Boris campaign bus. And, of course, at the front of the bus, it bears a reminder, Front Boris. Whether London ends up with Boris or Ken, there will definitely be more police officers on the streets. Brian Paddock, for a start. Paul and Marcus, here's yours.
A Polish shop, or a Polish shop, presumably, Polish writing, so it must be Polish. We're off, mate. This country's rubbish. Cheerio. It's just about Polish people leaving England and going back to Poland.
Going over there, leaving us jobs.
Taking away the smell of their cooking.
Yeah. Taking their Polski sklep with them. That's a lovely word, sklep, isn't it?
Yes, what's that mean?
I've absolutely no idea. My guess is it's some form of sausage or boiled dumpling.
This is the shocking news that immigrants are now emigrating. Now, who said... Man, who says so?
The IPPR, which is a Labour think tank.
God, you are brilliant.
IPPR.
So now our plumbers won't be able to speak English anymore.
Well, I'm not sure they ever really could, but...
That was the joke.
yeah, oh, it's... Yeah.
Could you give us a verbal signal when you've done
Like,
it?
away!
Like this.
Bloody hell, my job's impossible here.
No, it's just the way you're doing it.
I know, I'm doing it. I shouldn't be here. I shouldn't be here.
Do you know, I'm thinking exactly the same thing. You're doing all right.
I'm doing all right. How many marks out of 10? Don't tell me the truth. I don't want the truth.
8.
8.
Can I just say, darling, you were very brave.
Stop it. Why isn't this as good news as it sounds?
What?
I'll throw it away.
Oh, I see.
I'll throw it away. I'm buggered if I know what it was about. I'll throw it away, love.
About the Polish people going back to Poland?
Yeah, yes, yes.
Is it because they haven't finished your conservatory?
Why are all these Poles going home?
They think there's too many immigrants here.
What did Pieter Zepsel say in The Sun this week?
I've lost my zloty.
My favourite thing about Britain is the cooked breakfast. I love watching Arsenal on TV and a pint in the pub when I have time. I also enjoy reading The Sun, especially stuff about British politics and the economy. They've got very good eyesight, the Poles, aren't they?
Excellent eyesight. They're known for
I mean, well, considering they're at it all the time. No, that's deafness. You get deaf, don't you, if you shag too much.
2:30.
Who's been misbehaving with an immigrant, my old son?
Lord Laidlaw?
Richard Barnbrook, the London mayoral candidate from the BNP.
Oh, yes.
He was having an affair with a nurse from Finland called Annika Tambilempi. It sounds like something from IKEA, doesn't it? Now, she told the News of the World, Richard sent me photos of his private parts before I'd even met him. I thought this was very odd for a politician. She hasn't been here very long, has she? She then found a copy of Hitler's Mein Kampf under his bed and said, if I'd known before that he was a sleazebag, I probably wouldn't have gone anywhere near him. So the photo of his knackers weren't a giveaway. This is terrible. Absolutely disgraceful. The way people behave. And keep your knackers in your underpants, you dirty bugger. Now, who's been refused entry to Britain this week? Who's been refused entry to Britain this week?
Cleric?
What the fuck's happened to you? You faded since the beginning.
I'm so sorry.
You're doing fuck all at the moment. Shall I tell you?
Yes.
You don't know,
Cleric.
do you? Right.
No.
No. I love it with these eggheads when I win.
You're the chairman, you're not meant to win.
I'm not meant to win.
You've got the
I
answers.
don't get any points.
No.
Don't I say to
That
you...
would
you-
rather ruin the quiz, since you're reading out the question and
Don't-
answer.
But don't I say, I mean, you may not confer? Did I say that? No, I don't. No, that's
No,
not
you can say anything you like, and have, I think.
Well, here's the information.
OK, give us a clue.
I'm not going to give you nothing. Osama bin Laden's son, Dave.
Dave.
No. I knew you'd fall for that. Yeah, I knew it. No, it's not Dave, it's Omar.
Omar, he's making eyes at me.
What's his argument for being let in?
But it's not his fault who his father is.
That's right, you're absolutely spot on. He doesn't think his dad's done anything wrong. You're quite right, Ian.
No, I'm not. I,
mean,
didn't say that at all. I said it's not his fault who his father is. I didn't say his father's done nothing wrong. That would have lined me up in a rather extreme company.
Right to the telly, I can read this. Now, This is the news that fewer East European immigrants are coming to Britain, and many of those who did come are now leaving. Many people are now realising that you can actually make a lot more money by going abroad, like this man. The Independent asked the big question. What if all the Poles went home? Well, they'd have nothing to fly that flag on for a start. Meanwhile, a BNP mayoral candidate, Richard Barnbrook, has been cheating on his fiancée with a Finnish immigrant he met on the internet. She told the News of the World Richard is average in bed. I think we'd all be pleased with that. I know I would. But I don't need that pill. I don't need the blue pill. Any bird
How do we
watching...
get out of here? How do we get out?
What about the pink pill that says tranquilizer?
Ian and Alan...
Horse dosage.
Have you always been shy?
Yes, I have. Yes, I didn't know what was going to happen tonight. I was going to be very serious, you know. But there it is. I mean, something happens. It's this chair. You see, this is the chair that Anne Whitcomb sat on, isn't it? You can feel the vibrations going up my arse. I also have to say, Paul.
Yes.
That I was very jealous because you said, because I rather fancied you myself, and I was astonished to hear that you said you'd fallen in love with Anne on that programme.
Did I?
You did, you said you loved her. I mean, I just was hoping you might say something like that to me.
Well, if I said it to Anne Widdecombe, the chances are I'll say it to you as well. There's no worries about that. No worries.
Very unfair.
It's Ian and Alan, here's another for you, love.
Dosh. Petrol prices.
Fuel tax protest. I've just read that.
Grangemouth refinery on strike. Queues for petrol.
Don't panic. You're spokesman for this. What
Yes.
would the Tories do?
Well, I think I would have interposed myself between them and helped them negotiate.
Is that it?
Yeah,
That would have stopped the strike, would it?
undoubtedly.
No more final salary pensions?
Well, then I've remembered I used to be an oil trader.
I'm glad you brought that
I
up.
thought you would.
Now, you worked for that bloke who got put in prison, didn't you?
Never ended up in prison.
Didn't he?
No.
No, he ran away first, didn't
Yes.
he?
Now, who's happy about the soaring price of oil?
Nobody.
Oh, come on, BP, Shell.
Are they making £3
Yeah.
million an hour?
But it says here that oil companies Shell and BP have made a combined $7.2 billion in 3 months, which works out at $3.3 million an hour. I mean, who the hell do they think they are? Tesco's? I mean, every little helps. Why don't they give me that voiceover instead of him?
You can record one now. I'm sure they'll hear it.
Every little helps. Meanwhile, there was a 2-day strike at the Grangemouth oil refinery in Scotland over workers' pensions. And why did the publication this week of the Sunday Times Rich List not help?
Because the man who owns the refinery was in it.
He's worth squillions. I'd never heard of him before, had you? The man
No,
who
but then
owns
I'm not
Guinness.
front bench spokesman for industry. And there's only one pipeline, which again I don't think anyone knew. There's all our oil, and there's one
to
little
Grangemouth.
pipeline for the whole country, and someone's turned it off.
You shut down everything.
Doesn't seem a very good idea, does it?
Yeah, you want to tell the unions that?
Again, I'm not the front bench spokesman.
You know, there really is a petrol crisis when motorists in Scotland start panic buying, with some putting in as much as £5 worth. Now, newspapers have been doing their bit to calm motorists with headlines like, "Petrol! We're running out! Strike! Starts fuel shortage feared! Will fuel stocks run dry?" And I'm all right. Express has had some fuel-saving tips for its readers this week. A car consumes the most petrol when it accelerates. That's brilliant. According to the law of physics, force equals mass times acceleration. Or, as the Daily Star put it, for their readers, vroom! You're getting your money's worth because that's my boss Nash from Star Wars. You want again? No end to my talents. Now...
Brian?
Yes?
What do you like when you're drunk?
The price of petrol has gone up. Crikey! And I thought Everest was steep.
You tried to climb that once, didn't you?
Were you worried about avalanches?
Yes. I'm here! Paul and Marcus, here's another story of the week. Here we go, my old sons.
This is, well, obviously a prison officer walking around. That's my stereo, there's my telly. This is prison cells, about how, probably one of those stories, and this is the title sequence from Porridge. This is probably one of those stories about prisoners having it cushy because they've got electricity in their cell.
You go in and get us a chocolate on your pillow.
I think you'll find that's prison slang.
You're quite right. This is the news that prisoners are turning down the chance to escape from jail. But according to the Telegraph, a drug dealer regularly broke into a Yorkshire jail using a ladder to climb the walls and supply inmates with drugs and mobile phones. Yet none of the prisoners chose to leave by the same method. Now, according to the Mail, the dealer also sold women's clothing to a transvestite prisoner. I bet he is popular.
And prostitutes as well, apparently.
Yes, the prostitutes have recently been smuggled into the prison at Sudbury in Derbyshire.
You see, that may be the answer to the overcrowding. It may be that they count heads while the prostitutes are in there. They should do a second...
A head count?
Yeah.
Now, what did inmates at a top security prison liken it to?
Usually a hotel, isn't it? Usually a hotel, it's like a
Holiday
Butlins
camp.
holiday camp.
I've been to Butlins, though. I can't imagine it's that bad.
Yes, he told Jack Straw it was like a holiday camp. Hi-de-hi. With drugs that cheap, they certainly were. I didn't write this. I did one prisoner describe...
Did you do that in the middle of Shakespeare?
I did this. I didn't write this.
This pun's gone down badly. I didn't write it. Married, sir, my cop's got this too big.
I mean, there's a tremendous amount of snobbery about Shakespeare in so many aspects of it. When it says John Gill, to talk like that, Sir John Gill, the National Theatre. I used to goose him when I was there every day. Go down the corridors and goose the great actor, Sir John Gill. Oh, leave me alone, Brian, I'm a great actor. He said to Michael Brian, you know that Brian, blessed, he's a terrible man, but he's a lovely bit of rough. Yes, this is the news that inmates are enjoying such comforts in jail that they are ignoring chances to escape. Now, prisoners receive a wage for doing work in prison, and the Times featured the range of basic items they can purchase, such as 250 grams of Lynx shower gel. Just what every prisoner needs, something to make himself absolutely irresistible. It's a very bad taste, I'm so sorry. And so to round two, which this week is called A Blessed in Disguise. I'm going to disguise myself as a news story, and you have to guess what it is. In and out, this one's yours.
Were you being a squirrel, then?
Absolutely right.
It's a squirrel.
How did you know that?
The red squirrels were initially displaced by the grey squirrels.
Yeah.
And now, after years of dominance, the grey squirrels are being displaced by black squirrels. And they've gone and attacked the old grey squirrels. And they're taking over. And a lot of people are very worried. It's in the squirrel community, these black squirrels coming over here, taking the greys nuts.
Would you like to see the photograph accompanying this story in the Sunday Times? This is the news that grey squirrels are being overtaken by a new mutant strain, the black squirrel. The interesting thing about these new squirrels is they're big, bushy, and have no trouble attracting a mate. Like squirrel, like human, I always say.
Have you been shagged by a squirrel? Is that what you're telling us?
Yes, and another animal has been in the news this week. What is all the fuss over Pierre the penguin?
Oh, he's bald. Nothing wrong with that. But he's bald all over, and therefore he's very cold in the Arctic. He is, and he's been made a special suit so that he can swim happily in the Arctic.
Not
Antarctic?
Antarctic,
Thank
yeah.
you.
Not that happily, though. He's being bullied by the other ones. Looking like a twat.
They've made Pierre a wetsuit, and here it is.
Fantastic. You can go surfing now when it's really cold.
Look at them. All ganging up on him. Look, on his own. See? You go and stand over there. Freak.
Here's a blessing in disguise for you, Paul and Marcus.
It's a new contraceptive campaign. I presume it's probably a lollipop lady, isn't it?
I think they've mounted cameras on them.
Really?
Yeah, they reckon they can trap a few extra speeding motorists by turning lollipop ladies into a form of speed camera. And if they flash you, which they might, then you definitely know you're going too fast.
This is the news that the lollipop ladies are being equipped with mini cameras to record cars that fail to stop.
That would be road safety taken to a new level, wouldn't it, if Brian were a lollipop lady?
Stop! Time now for the odd one out round.
Is it you, Brian?
Just one between you this week. Rick Astley, Negative Equity, Blake 7 and a perm.
This is about comebacks. They're going to remake Blake 7. So that was a show from the 80s. Rick Astley was a very big pop star in the 80s. He had quite a few hits. I think he's made a comeback recently. Negative Equity, that's making a comeback in a big way. That's an 80s thing. So it's something about 80s, and there's the perm as well. So I don't think the perm's coming back. So I think that they're all 80s events which are making a comeback except for the perm. So that's the odd one out.
Absolutely marvellous, absolutely brilliant, Ian. I mean, that is sensational.
Is that right? I'm Paul.
Absolutely right. I'm so sorry. They're all making an enthusiastic comeback from the 80s, apart from Rick Astley, who is reluctant to do so.
Oh, so he was absolutely wrong.
Did you say that? Did you say that?
I picked the perm as the odd one out, but the 80s was the theme I was after. But of course, Rick Astley refuses to make a comeback, so he's the odd one out.
Oh, that's right.
This is via the internet. I know this story. I'm not going to get any points now because you've told me.
You're not going to get any points. Look, but this is rather like Swampy years ago when we'll re-edit it, and then but you deserve it because your knowledge was so sensational.
Thank you very much.
And I'm very, very partial to you.
Are you?
In fact, I'm madly in love with you.
Yeah.
But there we go.
I better brace myself.
There's this phenomenon known as Rickrolling. When you go on YouTube, whatever you type in, you get given Rick Astley's video. So he's become an immense overnight viral sensation. And he
Much
doesn't
like he
want
did
to
in
be.
the
He's
80s.
retired. He's got a job.
When you said Rickrolling, I thought it was something like cow tipping when he's asleep. Just shove him off his bed.
Cow tipping?
Have you never done that?
No, I haven't.
Cow tipping, it's something they do in the West Country to pass the time. During the middle of the night, because cows sleep standing up, you run up to them and push them over.
Have you ever done that, Brian? You ever tipped a cow?
I have, yes.
Have you ever been tipped?
How many cows up Mount Mount Everest?
Yaks, love.
Yaks,
Yes. I'll tell you, you've been 20 weeks up Mount Everest when you've been up in the snow and ice. When you come down to base camp and you see a yak, they look very appealing. I will press on with something brilliant now.
Yeah. I'm sure yaks say the same about you.
God, I'm being outclassed here. Is it terrible?
They find them a little bit too hairy, most of them.
Ladies and gentlemen, I was in Blake 7. I played Vargas, the ruler of Cygnus Alpha. Do you want to see me in action?
Yes.
Well, here we go.
We have to turn the sound down.
You think I would hesitate to kill you? Now take this ship back to Cygnus Alpha.
No! I was their priest! I shall return to them and
I like the plimsolls we're wearing.
Yes. Well,
I like the fact you've never been typecast.
I've never suffered from that. Yes.
You're going to be in the remake?
No, I'm not. No, love, I'm not in that, love. No, I'm not in that. No. It was...
Calling him love, too.
What did you say, darling?
You're too timing.
I think you're lovely.
Thank you.
I think you're gorgeous. You're my second choice after Paul.
Perms
are making a comeback. It's been put down to shows like Ashes to Ashes. Can you remember any famous perms from the 80s?
Kevin Keegan had a big perm, didn't he? That was a very famous one.
We got Keegan with the perm tail. Let's have a
Okay.
look. Yes, sir. That was taken 1983, and in 1985 we got Bonnie Tyler with permed hair. And this is from 1986, Ian and Paul with perms. Darlings.
Paul, you look a bit like that child genius who was the... the
antique expert, yes.
Yeah.
Even though Harpo Marx's mum.
And Ian, you look like a very startled King Charles Spaniel.
No, just a very startled King Charles. They're going to execute me! Why does King Charles speak like Brian Blessed? They're going to execute me!
The perm is popular again, and the inventor of the perm was a German called Charles Nessler. He perfected his process in 1906 using a mixture of water and cow urine, because you're worth it. The science fiction series Blake 7 is to be revived. According to the Blake 7 website, the programme was notorious for its elementary continuity errors. Not in my day. Which means at the
That's
end...
a fantastically elaborate prop
Thank you
for
very
that
much.
joke.
I spared no expense with this one. It really is. I mean,
You could be in 300.
I could. I'm too loud. I was too loud for it. I'd have scared all the Spartans. They were Nancy boys. They were puffs.
And what were you called in Z-Cars?
Fancy Smith.
Does anyone remember what this programme used to be like?
Right, it's time now for the missing words round, which this week features as its guest publication, Portable Restroom Operator. But it is for fans of toilets everywhere, and let's face it, every toilet needs a fan. I know mine does.
So what did you do when you're up Mount Everest?
I was actually 3/4 away up Mount Everest at one stage, Paul.
Yeah.
I were in a tight tent at about 26,000 feet, Evelyn Adams, David Hoyland and myself, and we were about to go for the summit the next day.
Yeah.
A terrible, a 4-mile drop, and suddenly David Adams said, I must have a shit. Oh, with this tent, you know. Christ, let him get across. It was 2 o'clock in the morning. He went out. So, Christ, tie him on, he'll fall down the face. He got onto the rope, we tied him off. He went over there, had a shit, came back. And we're getting back into the snow's coming in good. Well, we might as well make a brew. So we might have made a brew of tea, all clamped together, 4 of us. And suddenly, David Hoyland suddenly says to me, there's a terrible smell of shit. And I looked, and there was a turd on Helperman Adams' shoulder. And what he had done was, He'd had a shed. The wind had carried up in the air. And then, in a lull in the weather, come down and land on his shoulder.
You know, when I asked the question, I had no idea what the answer was.
And that's the glamour of Everest. Yeah. So where are we? So here we go with I'm fast becoming a bore says what?
A wild young pig.
Lewis Hamilton. According to the Daily Star, Lewis Hamilton saves £4 million a year tax by living in Switzerland. They say saves, I say avoids. I mean, God, I've been paying tax since I was 14 years of age. How the hell does he get away with that? Next. Soaring noise levels, what?
Increase whenever Brian Blessed walks into a room.
No, the answer is result in quest for a quiet life. Now, campaigners are seeking to reclaim urban tranquility after a study found that city life is 10 times louder now than it was a decade ago.
Some cities.
One of... What
Wherever
the
you're
fucking deal? What's going on? Where the fuck are you?
It's gone.
It's gone. Go back, love, with the fucking thing. I'm back to the fucking beginning. Where the fuck are we, darling? Go back. A bit slower, sweetheart. I think she's pissed. Next. If placing a portable restroom near a cliff edge, what?
Don't. Be careful to secure it properly to the ground, something like that.
Firmly stake it down.
Yes.
Mind you, if you suddenly found yourself falling over the edge of a cliff, a portable restroom is one of the few things of any practical use. Next, anger a sausage roll's mum, what?
Anger as sausage rolls mum downhill.
Is she fined? Arrested?
Fine, £75. Oh, yeah. A mother in Hull was fined for littering after she dropped a morsel of sausage roll whilst feeding her toddler. According to The Sun, the remains of the sausage roll were set upon by pigeons, which were in turn brushed aside by determined John Prescott. Does anyone want to see a potato that looks like John Prescott?
I'd love to see a potato that looks like John Prescott.
Well, here it is, here it is. And finally, one portable restroom is named what? In a whimsical reference to the famous comedy character.
Portillo.
Spankies.
Doesn't he run Formula One?
So the final scores are Ian and Alan have 7, and Paul and Marcus have 11! Oh. And I leave you with news that off the coast of Aberdeen, after a ship sinks with a full cargo of Winilot, one determined salvage expert is first on the scene.
Wetsuit from the Penguin.
Albania accepts its human cloning plan, still has some way to go. And after a gruelling London mayoral election, Boris, Ken and Brian put their differences aside. Good night, ladies and gentlemen!
Follow that. The only way is to head to Newcastle to see the original Sid the Sexist and meet the real-life avid Merry-On with the comedy map of Britain next on BBC Two. Then it's not billed as a comedy, but it didn't half make me laugh. This week's Apprentice, here at 11:45.
I hope you enjoyed that. I know I haven't had so much fun since I got frostbite in the Andes. I knew I should have worn gloves. You should see my cock.
Oh, go on then.
Go on.